So, reading from Bhagavad-Gita, we are on chapter 14, text 15, right? Okay, thank you. Rajasi pralayam gatvā karma-saṅgiṣu jāyate tathā pralīnas tamasi mūḍha-yoniṣu jāyate rajasi in passion, pralayam dissolution, gatvā attaining, karma-saṅgiṣu in the association of those engaged in fruitive activities. Jāyate takes birth. Tathā similarly. Pralīnaḥ being dissolved. Tamasi in ignorance. mūḍha-yoniṣu in animal species. Jāyate takes birth. And this is translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. And Prabhupada's purport reads as follows. Some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance after his death, he is degraded to an animal form of life. From there, one has to again elevate himself by an evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness and in good association transcend the modes and become situated in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that the human being will again attain to the human status. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Kṛṣṇa Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastatya Deshatarine Jaya Sri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, the modes of material nature is the title of this chapter. But this topic is so important that Kṛṣṇa speaks extensively on it beyond the 14th chapter. He also speaks about the modes of material nature in the 17th and 18th chapter. And it's quite explicit. Kṛṣṇa is quite clear about every facet of influence that the modes of material nature have on our physical as well as our psychological being. Many times Srila Prabhupada would say we are conditioned by the modes of material nature. Modes of material nature being sattva-gun, raja-gun, and tama-gun. So wonderful is the explanation that Kṛṣṇa gives. He talks about what the influence is. The modes of material nature are present throughout all of the manifest universes. Just as the example is given, just as there is thread throughout, if you have a sheet, there is thread throughout the entirety of the sheet, from each corner to each side, etc. The thread is present everywhere in the sheet. Similarly, the modes of material nature are present everywhere in the manifest universe. Sattva-gun, raja-gun, and tama-gun. So sattva-gun is the mode of goodness. Actually, one of the major goals of yoga, the practice of yoga, is to develop a sattvic mind. If the mind is influenced by passion and ignorance, Kṛṣṇa says in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, the mind can be the best of friends or the worst of enemies. So the lower modes of passion and ignorance, when it's influencing the mind in that way, it causes our distress, it causes our ignorance, and it causes us not to be able to understand things as they are. There's an old saying I quote quite often, that things are not, okay, how does it go? Things are not as we see them. Things are not as they are as we are. Things are not perceived as they are, they're perceived as we are. So that means our perception, how we perceive the world, is how we are being influenced psychologically by the modes of material nature. Prabhupada would use the example of seeing through a filter. If you put on spectacles or glasses, and those glasses are tinted yellow, then what you perceive is yellow. If they're tinted red, what you perceive is red. The reality is neither yellow nor red. You put on blue eyeglasses, then what you perceive is blue. The reality is not blue. It is tainted, it is tinted. So the conditioned state caused by sattva-gun, raja-gun, or tama-gun influences our perception of the world around us. So we don't see things as they are, we see things according to our condition. So if someone is predominantly influenced by the mode of ignorance, then they're going to see. Let's take 3 people and put them side by side. One's predominantly influenced by ignorance. One's predominantly influenced by passion. One's predominantly influenced by sattva-gun. They may take a situation, a perception, and their perception will be different. Psychologically, what they see and what they perceive and how they interpret their perception will be different according to their condition. So they see as the conditioning prevails. So if the prevailing condition is ignorance, tama-gun, then that's the way they'll see. That's why it says in the Bhagavad-Gita, one who is influenced by the mode of ignorance cannot see things as they are at all, cannot understand or even ask the question about God and God's existence. Because their perception, the world is a negative place to be. The world is always trying to put me down, always blame, there's the blame game. That is the way the perception is. I am covered by ignorance, I am influenced by that perception, and my perception is negative. Person influenced by the mode of ignorance has a tendency towards intoxications and performing and developing or creating a lifestyle which is destructive, a destructive lifestyle. And that's why Kṛṣṇa says here, when one dies, according to the Tamagun, there is two statements in Bhagavad-Gita. One statement is here, when one dies, one achieves animal life. But also later on, Kṛṣṇa will say animal life or hellish planets, as he will say with the mode of passion. One dies under the influence of the mode of passion, he'll take birth in the earthly planets. One who dies influenced by sattva gun, they will achieve the heavenly planets. Or if they have the good fortune, bhakti sukriti, they perform some action that puts them in contact with bhakti and a teacher of bhakti, a pure devotee of bhakti, then that bhakti sukriti can lead them to the point of purification of the heart. And purification of the heart leads to Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva means pure goodness, the state of pure goodness. And what does the state of pure goodness mean? It means that there is no interplay between passion, ignorance, and goodness. When someone is in a conditioned state, it's not always one. They're not always in sattva gun. They're not always in rajagun. They're not always in tamagun. No, because why? What do we need to sleep? We need tamagun to sleep. What do we need to be active? Unless we're on the pure devotional platform, you need rajagun to be active, because rajagun is activity. And sattva gun is the perception of seeing things in a philosophical way. Also, in sattva gun, there's happiness, the perception of happiness. So all of these things are very important. That's why, excuse me, in the 8th chapter, Kṛṣṇa tells us that if you meditate on the Supreme Lord, then that thought process will transport us to the spiritual world. The two verses, chapter 8, text 5. Antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevram. If you know it, chant with me. Ya prayati samadbhavam yatti nashyatra samsayaha. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. And then again, the point's so important. When Kṛṣṇa repeats something, that means there's greater emphasis. Just like if a teacher, I was a teacher before retirement, I was an English teacher. And if I knew one thing that the students couldn't understand was grammar. They have a very difficult time. They've actually done research regarding this, and it takes a long time for the mind to really understand the nature of grammar. So I knowing this, I would I would write it on the board, the point that I was making. Then I would say the point, that's twice. Then I would have them repeat it 3 times. So Kṛṣṇa here is repeating this point twice, right in a row. That what you are thinking of at the time of death, that determines your destination. And then he repeats it again. If you are meditating on me at the time of death, that you will come to me. So that means it's a really important point, an emphasis on the fact that how do we use our human form of life? If we are steeped in the mode of passion, then there's hankering, there is intense desire, there is greed, and as a result, there's distress. And if we're in the tamagun, then there is laziness, indolence, sleep, cannot see things as they are. And then I heard one Ayurvedic doctor, my wife's an Ayurvedic doctor. She's a medical doctor, but she's also an Ayurvedic doctor. And I heard one doctor, Ayurvedic doctor, was making the point that the tamagun and sattvagun are very close. Because in tamagun, you don't want to do anything because you're lazy. In sattvagun, you don't want to overexert yourself because of knowledge, right? In sattvagun, you realize that the human form of life is a very important gift that has been given to us. So we can't waste the human form of life simply in working hard like an ass. Therefore, a sattvic person may appear like a tamasic person, but ultimately the sattvic person is doing it out of choice, is choosing not to work hard like an ass, but rather to live a balanced life. One of the characteristics of sattvagun is harmonious, living harmoniously, living a life in balance. What's the whole point of Ayurveda in terms of the healing process? It's to be balanced, right? And disease, according to Ayurveda, is imbalance, when there's imbalance there. So the whole point of Ayurveda, through diet, through lifestyle, and when the patient needs it, certain herbs that bring the body and the mind into balance. So sattvagun is balance. Tamagun, there is no balance, total imbalance, an imbalance of lifestyle, right? Sleeping too much. Prabhupada says in the Purport that one does not need to sleep more than 6 hours. But a person in tamagun will sleep 10 to 12 hours. Many of you are older. Do you find that you need to sleep less as you get older, right? I find it that every morning I'm waking up 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and hard to get back to sleep. It's a blessing because then you get your rounds done early. But the reality is, as you practice Krishna consciousness, as you practice the proper lifestyle, performance of sadhana, all of these things has a purificatory effect on the heart. And the result of purificatory effect on the heart is that consciousness gets elevated to sattvagun. And sattvagun means, we have an interest in knowledge. We have an interest in, Prabhupada mentions poetry. We have an interest in a more balanced and harmonious lifestyle. All of these things are secondary reactions to following a yogic lifestyle, bhakti-yoga lifestyle. Our sadhana produces these things secondarily. The goal of our sadhana is not to be just healthy, wealthy, and wise. The goal of our sadhana is to become conscious of our relationship, our eternal relationship, reconnected with our eternal relationship with the Supreme. But the secondary effects are there. Just like all the qualities of the demigods, right? One who performs pure devotional service says in the Bhagavatam, all the qualities of the demigods are automatically there. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Tattvam Sutram, he states that kindness, respect, compassion, friendliness, these qualities do not have to be cultivated separately. That if one is performing bhakti-yoga properly, sincerely, under the guidance of a spiritual master, these qualities will naturally manifest within the heart. Why? Bhaktivinoda states in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita that these are the qualities of the soul. So what are we doing in the execution of our sadhana? It's a sattvic lifestyle, right? Rise early, go to bed early, right? We gear our lifestyle according to the sun. Peaceful before the sun rises. It's extremely auspicious when the sun begins to rise. That's when it's recommended Gayatri mantra is chanted, when the sun is in the sky but not in the sky. That's when Gayatri is recommended. And then when the sun is overhead. So we follow a lifestyle. We rise early before the sun, Prabhupada says. Mangal Arti, right? That's why we go to Mangal Arti. Auspicious time, hour and a half before the sun rises. So we become very in tune to the world around us. We become aware, sensitive to the effects of lifestyle, proper lifestyle. We actually can feel the effects. I know myself that when I'm eating properly according to my dosha, when I eat, like I was in Delhi temple prior to coming here, and they made arrangements every morning I could have khichdi with no chili. And immediately I felt the difference, because that's a very cleansing and nourishing kind of diet. And then I come here and I'm eating all kinds of sweets and going to the restaurants and all this, and you feel a little bit of the change, because basically at home we live an Ayurvedic lifestyle, a devotional lifestyle, but also in accordance with the principles of Ayurveda. But you can feel, you become sensitized to how your body and your mind is reacting. Because what we are doing in terms of the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the going to the morning program, the hearing, Rupa Goswami says there's 64 limbs of bhakti, and of those 64 limbs, 5 are very, very powerful. So Prabhupada has given us a program by which we perform on a regular basis in the course of our sadhana the 5 powerful limbs of bhakti. Chanting Hare Krishna, right? Sadhu Sangha, associating with devotees and advanced devotees. Swadhyaya, studying, particularly Swadhyaya refers for us, followers of bhakti-yoga, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad-Gita. Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya means study of the sacred text and self-study. Why does that dual meaning? Because if you're studying the sacred text and you're in contact with pure knowledge, it gives us the ability to do an honest self-study, an honest assessment. What do I mean by honest assessment? Well, it means that I personally take inventory of how I spend my day. How much time am I wasting? How do I avoid that? How much time am I absorbed in my Krishna conscious sadhana? How much time do I spend with my family? All of these things, I take inventory. So this is self-study, and it's a limb, one of the potent limbs, powerful limbs of bhakti. Swadhyaya, study of the sacred text, and Swadhyaya, self-study, which for me means I have to watch myself. I have to be careful and make sure I'm doing the right things. That if my mind is spacing out while I'm chanting japa, it's my responsibility to bring it back. My responsibility to have that self-awareness that I'm playing with the weapon of mass distraction, like the cell phone or something like that, being distracted. Because Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, of the 10 offenses, inattention brings all the 10 offenses. When we're inattentive while chanting, all the other 10 offenses will follow as a result. So this kind of swadhyaya, self-study as well as study of the sacred text, very, very important. So when we're living a lifestyle diet based on sattvic principles, according to the direction that we are given by our Acharya Srila Prabhupada, then it has this effect. So we're chanting, but we chant mindfully. We're associating, but it's not just socializing. It's associating. It means that we hear and we observe the qualities and the characteristics of advanced devotees, and we try to implement that into our life. Because we not only learn by hearing, but we learn by watching. We learn how a person who is very advanced is acting, who is dealing. Just to observe Srila Prabhupada dealing with the various kinds of devotees. Can you imagine Srila Prabhupada when he came here and the Westerners that he was preaching to, me being one of them, what kind of baggage that we came to Srila Prabhupada with. So just to watch Srila Prabhupada deal with the different types of psychologies. And Prabhupada knew, he was very keen, very aware of an individual's psychology, how that individual needed to be directed. He was very keen on that. Some Prabhupada would scold, chastise, cajole, instruct. Some Prabhupada would never raise his voice because he knew some were very delicate and someone needed to be kicked. And then they would, respond accordingly. That's the kind of sensitivity that we have to cultivate when we talk about the modes of material nature and this kind of self-awareness. We don't have to study or be psychologists, because the greatest psychology that exists on the face of this planet is understanding the nature of the modes of material nature. Then we can understand so many things. And Kṛṣṇa even says in the Gita that one who studies the modes of material nature can become liberated just by understanding the modes of material nature. And that also explains why Kṛṣṇa puts so much emphasis on the modes of material nature. That in 3 different chapters of the Bhagavad-Gita, he's talking about the modes of material nature. That if you die in sattva gun, what will be the results of that? If you pass away influenced by rajagun, what the results will be? If you pass away in tamagun, what the results will be? If you act in sattvagun, what the results will be? All of these things are there in the Bhagavad-Gita. Every single aspect, every dimension of our waking and sleeping existence can be understood and can be properly cultivated so that eventually we can rise, we can evolve our consciousness to this sattvic, and eventually through the practice of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, the Shuddha sattvic platform. Shuddha sattvic means no more influence by their lower modes. When we make the distinction between sattva gun, means mode of goodness, and Shuddha sattva means pure goodness. Sattva gun can also be influenced by tama and rajas, because as Kṛṣṇa says in one of these verses here, there's interplay. You're going through the course of your day, you're getting sleepy, you're getting tired, tamagun, you need tamagun for, you're active, you're really doing lots of activity, that's rajagun. Sattvagun, you're sitting, you're studying, you're chanting, you're honoring prasada mindfully, etc. But the point of our practice, our sadhana, is to rise, evolve to the point of sattvagun, Shuddha sattva. And that way, there is no more influence. Therefore, someone who's on the Shuddha sattvic platform or is a pure devotee may appear like the influences are there, may appear like sleepy or active or having a desire. Prabhupada was very ambitious. From the day that Prabhupada arrived here in the Western world, he envisioned ISKCON. He sat down on a park bench with an American businessman. And the man was asking Prabhupada questions, and Prabhupada was telling him, we have many temples and farms. Prabhupada had already envisioned the blueprint for the establishment of Kṛṣṇa consciousness in the world, in the whole world. But it hadn't happened yet. This is before even Prabhupada, I think, I don't even think Prabhupada was in 26 Second Avenue yet. And Prabhupada was saying like that. He was putting it out, that this is what it's going to be. So this is the pure devotee, not under that influence of the modes of material nature. Purely in that harmonious, clear, happy state of mind. When you were with Prabhupada and he smiled, that was it. That was your world. That was your existence. That you felt like, you were achieving something, that you were pleasing your spiritual master by either distributing books or behaving in a particular way that was noteworthy, etc. Prabhupada always wanted us to be gentlemen and ladies. That was one, when one devotee, I can't remember if it was a devotee who asked him or a reporter. I think it was a reporter, actually. What does it look like to be a devotee? What does it mean to be a devotee? And Prabhupada said, a perfect gentleman. So our character, it's a character building process when we become Kṛṣṇa conscious under the tutelage of a spiritual master. It builds character from within the heart. And as Bhakti-Vinod says in the Tattvam Sutram, it doesn't have to happen externally. So Kṛṣṇa is telling us, we're living and we're dying. And if you die under the influence of one of these modes of material nature, this is going to be the result. Tamagun, either animal life or hellish planets. The Rajagun, come back and do the same thing over again in the earthly planets. Sattvagun, then Devaloka, you can go to the heavenly planets, or you can develop your Kṛṣṇa conscious, you can evolve to eventually become Shuddha Sattva. So Kṛṣṇa is giving us all this guidance, all this direction. That's his divine mercy in this Bhagavad-Gita. So I highly recommend you study the three modes of material nature and understand how it's pushing us, how it's driving, it's a driving force. And that will give us the perspective. So when we're dealing with people in our preaching activities, when we're explaining the philosophy of Kṛṣṇa consciousness, or even when we're just befriending someone. I have a program in the United States, in South Florida, where my main emphasis is to meet people who never have been to a temple and probably will never go to a temple, but yet they're intelligent people. And then I deal with them according to who they are, according to their likes and their interests. I try to tune into that and deal with them on that level. And then eventually, through either repeated association or even in that initial association, Prabhupada said in dealing with people, you should look for one of four things. Number one, they should appreciate you, right? They should respect you by virtue of your character, by virtue of your behavior, by virtue of the fact that you're willing to be mutually respectful. In other words, you can't ask for respect if you're not giving respect. So appreciation can be there. Then if that person is particularly interested, then you can somehow or another encourage them to maybe give a donation. For instance, if you're talking to someone and you, in the course of your discussion, you give them a book, then not just give them a book, but you ask them to give a donation. So appreciation, donation, all helps to build bhakti sukriti in relationship to a devotee. If you see that that person is particularly interested, then you can engage them in seva, some kind of service. Or what I found in the course of my travels and the course of my preaching, I found that people want to do some service for you, something. They want to help you in some particular way. Knowingly or unknowingly, it still has the same benefit. So appreciation, possible donation, seva, some engagement in seva, or if that person, like my good friend Sri Hari here, who traveled with me from Florida, he wanted the whole thing. He wanted bhajana kriya. He wanted to perform sadhana. Now he chants 16 rounds, follows the principles, hears 3 classes a day, and has taken initiation as a result of that. So those are the things that we look for in terms of our dealing with people. And I can tell you the knowledge of the 3 modes of material nature really help out in terms of your assessment of individuals and their mindset. So I'll stop here so that we can have some discussion if you like. Anyone have any question or comment or observation that they would like to share with the rest of us? Please feel free. Yes?
Thank you very much. Your voice is just so resounding and positive and feel encouraged. You are a proper disciple.
Yes.
From Mayapur festival. Okay, one point I want to make is Prabhupada once said that I want that all of my disciples inherit the title of Bhakti-Vedanta, meaning you all become pure devotees, Mahabhagavatas. So it is not an exaggeration, it is a fact.
Right.
It can happen because that is what the Bhagavad-Gita and Bhagavatam CC is all about, is becoming pure devotees.
Yes.
Or Bhakta Vrinda.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I see that in Srila Prabhupada's life, I mean, everyone owes Srila Prabhupada so much. We in ISKCON, Prabhupada, of course, I also love Prabhupada. But things worked for Srila Prabhupada. Wait a second, just try to understand what I'm saying. I mean, so much success, ISKCON, Juhu, Vrindavan, Mayapur, the West. This is like epitome of success, But we hear from a long time, there are stories of failures. I'm a failure, sorry, excuse me. And there are stories of failures of devotees leaving the movement or getting fall downs. Why? Why is Kṛṣṇa, Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead? I mean, Srila Prabhupada had all the astounding success. I'm sure by now you got what I wanted to say. It's just there in my heart. Why can't we all also have that same success?
Well, one of the things which is a big cause of fall down is aparad. And there's Vaishnava aparad, there's Seva aparad, there's Dham aparad, there's Guru aparad. Jiva Goswami in the Bhakti Sandarbha, he says that the mind goes through 6 or 5 transformations when one commits aparad to Vaishnavas. First, crooked. The mind becomes crooked. And he elaborates by saying that the mind becomes deceitful. In other words, if the mind becomes deceitful, then we can project that deceit and behave deviously to others. So the mind will become crooked as a result of this kind of offensive dealings with Vaishnavas. That's why we have to be very careful. The second thing is lack of faith. Our faith wanes. Even our faith in ourselves. Like you were saying, I'm a failure. No, you're just, you need a boost. you need a jump, We all do. And that's what, making it a regular habit to associate with devotees that you respect and inspire you. In the 9th chapter, Purport of the Bhagavad-Gita, Srila Prabhupada says, faith is built by association with devotees. So we just have to do an honest assessment of where we're at. But to get back to your point, I don't want to deviate too much from your point. Crooked mind, lack of faith, attachments develop. Jiva Goswami is breaking this down. The mind becomes crooked, faith becomes weakened, attachments develop, then we begin to slacken in our practice, our sadhana, and the real killer is pride. We become very proud. Proud in a negative way. I mean, you can become proud that you're a devotee, that somehow or another you are involved in helping ISKCON and being a disciple of Srila Prabhupada or a grand disciple of Srila, that kind of pride. But I mean, proud means me when I'm in the center of the universe and I'm looking for recognition as a result of my actions. So those CLASP, clasp, crooked mind, lack of faith, attachments develop, sadhana slackens, and pride develops. So that's one thing which causes fall down. Another thing is we have samskaras. Samskaras means impressions. The mind takes in all of this data from the senses, from the eyes, from the ears, from the nose, from the sense of touch. All this data is coming in, right? And we do things. This makes an impression. Impression never goes away. It's in the subtle mind. So when we put ourselves in contact with a certain type of samskara, which is negative or which has a detrimental effect to our devotional service, then we develop an inclination to do that thing again. So this inclination goes deeper and deeper. The more we put ourselves in association with a samskara, which is detrimental to devotional service. What? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpa niyamagra. Prajalpa, right? This is a big one. Because even in the Nectar of Instruction, 2 times, Rupa Goswami says, right? Vacho vegam, tongue. Manasukroda vegam, jiva vegam, tongue. Udara upashta vegam. Like I said, if there's a repetition of a point, it means that's a strong point. So if we have these samskaras where we gossip, fault find, do those kinds of things, that just reinforces the samskara that's there to do those things. The inclination becomes stronger. So even we're performing devotional service, but we're engaging in prajalpa. That just reinforces that tendency, that inclination. We become inclined to gossip. Our ears perk up when we hear something negative about a devotee, right? We just get, oh, really? I thought there was something wrong with that devotee. Yeah, when they chant, look at Laxmi Sri when he chants, he looks so proud of himself. Yeah, I thought that. So these things are there. And we have to recognize them. So samskaras, aparad, these are all causes of fall down that we have to be very, very careful about. Any other question or comment or observation or point that you would like to make to help us out here? Yes.
Just now you are talking about the impressions.
What's that?
Impressions. The mind. Impressions. You are talking about impressions,
In what? I'm not getting it.
Presence.
In presence? Huh? Present?
Impression.
Oh, impression. I'm sorry. Thank you. Impression. Yes. So,
How to eliminate that?
well, what we do is that's when the importance of the lifestyle, the Krishna conscious lifestyle. We surround ourselves, the sensory input. My house is a art gallery of Kṛṣṇa, right? That's all I have on the walls are beautiful pictures of Kṛṣṇa or Lord Chaitanya or Lord Nrsimhadev or Jagannath. You know, I've been blessed. You know, one devotee gave me this beautiful painting of Lord Jagannath, Lord Baladev, Subhadra. Another devotee gave me this beautiful painting of Radha Krishna and the Ashtasakis. And all over my house, except in the bathrooms, I have, so, sight, right? How much time do you spend in your home? You spend a lot of time in your home. Even in my car, on my dashboard, there's Radha Krishna and there's Lord Nrsimhadev, right? So I sit at the light, I have a visual impression coming in of Radha Krishna, Lord Nrsimhadev, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We play, now no more CDs, now you do it off of your phone and you play kirtan. You try. Prabhupada, you know what Prabhupada called it? When I joined Krishna consciousness, I didn't join a temple. I joined the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party with Vishnu Jan Swami. It was just Vishnu Jan Swami and 8 brahmacharis. And we had a bus. The bus was made like a temple, right? You go inside, it's flat, just floor and an altar with Radha Damodar on the altar. So Vishnu Jan Swami was telling a story once that he was very a lover of Srila Prabhupada, right? So any opportunity he would take, he would go and speak with Prabhupada. Or one time he was even looking through the keyhole into Prabhupada's room. He was sneaking a look into. So he told me that Prabhupada, he asked almost a similar question to what you're. How do we do this? You know, the mind, the senses, they're so out of control. Prabhupada says you must develop a no-gap philosophy. And then he says, I will show you. And then Prabhupada picked up his bead bag, right? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Then Prabhupada put his bead bag down. He opened the Bhagavad-Gita and he's reading. Rajasi, pralayaṁ, gatvā, karma-saṅgiṣu, jāyate, tathā, pralīnas, tamasi, mūḍha-yoniṣu, jāyate. And Prabhupada put down the Bhagavad-Gita and he went to the harmonium and he started doing bhajan. And then, he did, and then he looked at Vishnu Jan Swami and he said, no gap philosophy. You must develop a no gap philosophy in your life. He said, where there's gap, there's Maya. So that's what we have to do. First thing that we do is in the environment that we have control of. It's our home, right? We have control of that. So do everything that you can. We have Prabhupada chanting japa on this loop 24/7. So if my mind dares to wander, then all of a sudden, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, you hear Prabhupada in the background. Whoops. 24/7. So that at least in the controlled environment, there's everything that we can do, we have done to keep the impressions, Krishna conscious impressions. And then you have to develop, depending on your individual situation, you have to develop a strategy when you're not in a controlled environment, right? When you're in a plane, when you're going food shopping, all the things that you naturally do. I take my son to the train, so he goes to school. He has to go to school on a train every day because the school's 25 miles away. And there's all these screaming kids, teenagers screaming and acting. Every single situation you have to anticipate and develop a strategy how you can remember Krishna in that. If you see young boys and girls, you can think of the cowherd boys and the gopis, right? You can think of the fun that they had, the jokes, the pranks that Kṛṣṇa and Balaram would play. All of the, somehow or another. What does yoga mean? Yoga means to link or to connect. So that's our business in bhakti. Bhakti is such a wonderful yogic process that we can connect every facet of our life somehow or another to Kṛṣṇa. We just have to be conscious and develop the strategy that will help us to connect no matter where we are. My wife and I go to the beach almost every day. Why do we go to the beach every day? We chant our japa there. It's impossible to fall asleep on the beach. The prana is so strong. The energy is so strong. Surya is there. Varuna is there. Bhumi is there. The breeze is there. The energy is there. It's impossible to fall asleep. So every day we go, but we're on the beach. We're not sunbathing. We're not putting sun tan and laying. We're chanting japa intensely. So every facet of your life you have to eat. And a good athlete. Do you know one of the secrets of a good athlete? I was an athlete when I was young. One secret, and I teach my son this because he loves soccer, football. And I said, you have to develop the ability to anticipate what is going to happen. Otherwise, if you don't develop that ability, things happen and you don't react quick enough. Same thing, we have to develop when we're mingling, outside of our home, outside of our control, that we have to anticipate what could happen and what is our strategy in dealing with this. You're driving and someone yells at you, curses at you, right? And then what is your strategy in dealing with that? The Buddha said that anger, why do people yell when they're angry? Do you know why?
Get their anger out.
Yeah, that's usually the first response. The Buddha's response was, because when you get angry, you get distant from people. And when you're distant from people, you have to yell, right? Shout. And the more angry you get, the more distant you become. That's why it's recommended that even in anger, if you can control your anger and speak softly, you won't lose connection with that person. But when you get angry and you start yelling, venting, as you say, and some people think it's justifiable to vent their anger through yelling, but you only become more distant. You don't become closer. You don't deal with the situation where you bring it closer again. Only by staying. Because what happens when you're close with a person, right? When you're affectionate to a person, the mood's so different, right? That you speak softly or jokingly. The whole mood of communication is connected. So that's why we have to meditate on strategy. And even if something comes up in the course of our dealings and we don't respond properly, we say, okay, back to the drawing board. How could I have dealt with that situation? And in this way, it's being mindful. It really is being present. Because in the spiritual world, there is no past and there is no future. There's only present. In the material world, the time construct is as such is because we are looking at it from a sense of enjoyment or suffering, not enjoying, either enjoying or not enjoying. So past, we lament about the past, we hanker after the future. But no, to be present. I was actually sitting on a rickshaw today because I had to go look at an altar that's being built for our house. And I was sitting and, the horns were blaring and all this. And I was just saying to myself, do you know where you are? You're in Vrindavan. Do you know that this road Kṛṣṇa could have passed with millions of cows and cowherd boys? So it was just a matter of bringing myself to the reality, not staying stuck in the illusion of past or present, future, but the reality. The reality is I'm in Vrindavan. Whatever is going on, that's just the mirage. I was explaining to Sri Hari the other day that when we see dirtiness and crowded and horns and all that, that's just kind of a reverse mirage, right? You're seeing the illusion, but the reality is paradise. Like in regular mirage, you see paradise, you see the oasis, and then behind that mirage is the desert. But it's the other way around. Here in Vrindavan, the mirage is the external things that are occurring. And right behind the reality is Vrindavan. But we always have to be mindful of that. We have to read, what is the dirt of Vrindavan? Right? Musk and camphor. The acharyas give such a wonderful description of what is the dust of Vrindavan. All of these things. We have to situate ourselves, continually make the effort to situate ourselves in reality and not get lost in the mirage. And in that way, when we're in touch like that, then, we're able to have the presence of mind to deal with the various situations which may distract us. Even with the weapons of mass distraction, we have to learn how to use that so, we can become more efficient and we become more Kṛṣṇa conscious. Not to see how many likes you got on your post, but to actually use it in such a way that it can help facilitate your Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Prabhupada made that point when he was talking about the dictaphone, right? He said that even we can use this dictaphone in the service of Kṛṣṇa, as he did in his translation. So thank you very much. I think we've gone over a little bit. I appreciate your kind attention. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama.